in my luteal phase, I was like, I don't care about anything else. I need sweet potatoes. I want sweet potatoes. I love sweet potatoes in my luteal phase. It's the absolute best thing in the world for me. I just need some sweet potatoes. Hi, my girlies. If you're new here, welcome. If you're fam, then welcome back. I'm MerrilyMaralee. I'm a certified menstrual coach, and when it comes to your cycle, I'm here to help you get it together. Today's episode is a part 2 to last week's conversation, all about how I completely unbalanced my hormones and what that taught me. If you haven't listened to it yet, go check it out. It's super relatable. I'm sure you will find tidbits of yourself in there as well. And I spill all the tea, so it's juicy. I know you'll want to hear it, but I will give a quick little recap of how everything went down as well. So basically, what had happened was I was extremely stressed, like chronic state of stress for a very long time because of my very compressed work schedule, dealing with all of these issues after getting into a car accident, making really bad food choices, not figuring out, good ways to manage my stress, all that kinds of things. I ended up being in survival mode for about 3 months, and that completely wrecked my hormones, and I ended up having the absolute worst period of my life. And I talked about this a little bit in the last episode, but survival mode wasn't actually the problem. Like, survival mode is your body doing its job, just trying to protect you and make sure that you're alive. So my body was doing everything that it needed to do. I just needed to create different situations that made my body feel safe. So the main way to combat being in survival mode is to make your body feel safe. Your body is literally saying, hey, baby girl, we're not safe. So in order to start moving towards getting out of survival mode, you have to focus on making your body feel safe. So today I'm going to talk about the 5 things that I did to make my body feel safe and to move out of survival mode. And these are just things that I did and they worked for me. Not everyone's survival mode protocols will look the same, and that's amazing. That's totally fine. We just need to sit down and really figure out like what does and doesn't work for our bodies. And this is how I got to that point for me. So take everything, with a grain of salt. One of my girlies that I absolutely love watching on YouTube, I think her name is Janet Domina, but she always says, take what you love, leave what you don't. And I think that's so tea. Yes, take what you love, leave what you don't. So the first thing that I did to start making my body feel safe and move out of survival mode was acceptance. I needed to learn how to accept what things were and weren't in my control. So accepting what it was with the work schedule, like when these shots need to come out, I have no control over that. When the drop dead deadline is to have everything delivered by, I have absolutely no control over that. So what's the point of me, freaking out and being so manic about everything when that deadline is not going to change regardless? And honestly, like, freaking out about it just hinders my work ethic. And if I'm just focused on getting it done instead of like freaking out about having to get it done in that amount of time, I could just get it done a lot faster and get it over with. The same thing with dealing with all of the nuances of being in a car accident and dealing with insurance and claims and policies. Like, all of that was so stressful and just time consuming, and it really just was sucking the life out of me. And I was like, girl, you cannot control the situation. I really had to just give it to God. Like, I was like, Lord, I don't know what's going on with the situation. I don't know what's happening. Who am I reaching out to? Who do I, X, Y, and Z, whatever. I literally had to give all that to God. And like, even with like how long it would take people to get back to me and I had questions, like, I literally had to give it all to God, because I would let that keep me up at night. And it was so, so bad for me. Like, I'm already not getting sleep. I cannot be losing sleep over this too. So I had to really sit down with the Lord and just put it on him. Like, God, I know that this situation is causing me a lot of strife. I'm really trying not to be anxious about it. Let me just pray about it. Let me just bring this to you, Father, because this burden, I do not want to bear it. I don't have the energy to bear this. I want to trust you. I want to confide in you and believe when you say that you got it. So I'm going to formally put this on you. I'll give it to you when it's time for me to check back in, when it's time for me to make a movement or something or respond to something. You will come to me and you'll let me know, all right, let's come back to this. But know that you're working in the background, even though I can't actually see what's going on. The releasing of control. I had to focus on that. I had to do that. That's just, basically like what that prayer looked like, with me giving that to God, and the relief I felt after that. And I truly did give it to him. Like, I would not think about it again. And if I caught myself like kind of bringing it up, I'd be like, oh, but that's in God's hands now. Moving on. And that's literally how I had to direct my mind for that in order to stay the path of giving that to him. So really, again, just like accepting the things that I can't control. And then I was shifting into, okay, what can I control? So the second thing that I did was I started tracking my cycle again, because I stopped hard tracking for like 2 months. When I say hard tracking, this isn't like an actual like term that people out there use. Like, this is my little term. I'll coin it, if you will. But for me, hard tracking is like tracking my basal body temperature every day, writing down what phase I'm in, what phase day I'm in, what day of my cycle I'm in, and like my symptoms, if I pooped, all that kind of stuff every single day. And I usually do that, but I just kind of let it fall to the wayside during this time. And I was more focused on soft tracking, which is like not really keeping, exact measurements of anything, just kind of going with the flow and the shifts in your body and having a general idea of where you were in your cycle. And that's fine. Like, if you're just starting to track your cycle, and like when you become more experienced in like knowing your body, that's a totally okay way to track as well. And that's why I felt comfortable just like doing that. Because I was like, I know where I am, blah, blah, blah. But the problem was that I was like, okay, it's been a while. I feel like I should have started my period by now. And I was like, let me track real quick. Let me do some math and see where I really am in my cycle. And boy, was the answer astounding. So the reason why I tend to track so promptly is because tracking provides stability for me. Like, it gives me knowledge, and knowledge is power. And this is going to be a fantastic example of why it's important to track and to know what is and isn't normal for your body. So when I started doing the backwards math of like where I was in my cycle, I realized that I was pretty late. I realized that I was on day like 30, 31 of my cycle, and I hadn't had my period yet. And that was like crazy to me, because typically for me, what's normal for my body is that I have healthy cycles between 26 to 28 days consistently. So the fact that I'm on like day 31 and I have not had my bleed, this is letting me know that like my ovulation was delayed. And I'm sure you're probably thinking like, okay, well, what's the problem with having your ovulation be delayed? Like, what is that? What causes that? Ovulation is kind of like a relay race between your brain and your hormones. Essentially, like when everything is chill, the hypothalamus in your brain is like, hey, let's release this luteinizing hormone, which is basically going to trigger ovulation. And your ovaries are like, bet, let's pop this egg. But when you're stressed, your body goes into full security lockdown mode. Stress triggers your adrenals to start pumping out cortisol, which is your stress hormone, which is not necessarily the bad guy, okay? Like, cortisol's job is to keep you alive. It's for you to survive. And that's why it runs the show when you're in survival mode, right? Because your body is only focused on surviving. Cortisol is here to make sure you live. It's not here to make sure that you ovulate. It's not here to help you have a cute little balanced cycle. It's like, baby girl, we need to be alive. That's what we need to make sure is happening, that we are still here. And so when surviving is the only thing that your body is focused on doing, the hypothalamus in your brain, which is like the CEO of hormone communication, it sees that cortisol and it's like, oh, we're not safe. Shut it down. Shut it all down. And it's like, don't send out that luteinizing hormone. Don't trigger ovulation. We need to focus on, survival. And so all that to say, like, levels of high stress can pretty much like delay ovulation or keep it from happening at all. And that's not good. Like, we need to be ovulating. We need ovulation to make sure that we're making progesterone, which is so important to our bodies. We'll talk all about that in another episode, but essentially, like, your body needs to be ovulating. That is a healthy process for your body to do. Delaying that or keeping it from happening at all is a surefire reason to understand that something's not happening. Something's not meshing well with your hormones. Something is off balance, and that should be triggering and be like, okay, we need to address this. And honestly, like, the reason that I had even like started like wanting to track again too, other than just feeling like I feel like my period should be here, was that like I was like not feeling great. Like, I wasn't really feeling like myself. And I had literally started tracking again on August 16th. And then my period came 2 days later on the 18th. And that was the worst period I had ever had in my life. So that was a bit of a tangent, but that was the second thing that I did, was to start tracking my cycle again so that I could understand what was going on with my body and be able to take control from there. The third thing that I did, and I enacted this as soon as that period started, which was like the period from the depths, was I started fasting, and I made sure to fast on my period. Now, I know that fasting is a bit of a controversial topic for sure, but for me, it's never about starvation or deprivation or anything like that. It's more so about allowing my body time to focus on recovery and a time to foster like clarity in my mind in a time where I'm so overwhelmed and there's just so many things going on. I feel like a lot of the controversy around fasting comes from when people hear fasting, they think of a really aggressive, long-term, restrictive time where it's just really like stressful and taxing on the body. And I gotta let you know, that's not my vibe. I think it's also important to note that there are a lot of different kinds of fasts, and they all have their own jar of caveats. For me, I do intermittent fasting, and I pretty much do it on a progressive basis where like I don't just jump straight into a big fast. It's like something that I work up to, and I only do it pretty much within my menstrual week. And when I say only within that menstrual week, like, sure, in like follicular and ovulation, I may like have a very light breakfast or skip breakfast. But if I'm gonna do like a longer fast, which the longest fast that I've ever done and only do are 24-hour fasts, that's only within my period week. Hormonally speaking, if you're gonna fast at all, the week of your period is pretty much like one of the safest times to do it, and I'll explain why. So first of all, your hormones are at their absolute lowest, which means that your sensitivity is lower. So because estrogen and progesterone are already like at their baseline, your body isn't trying to build anything right now. Your body's just really focused on resetting and clearing out. Second, your insulin sensitivity is higher, so you are more better equipped to handle fasting without major blood sugar swings, especially compared to in the luteal phase when your metabolism ramps up and you need like to be eating for a consistent, steady source of fuel. Thirdly, for a lot of women, their appetite decreases during this phase, so it's a bit more intuitive to kind of give your digestive system a break here because you're already naturally not eating as much. And then fourthly, it's a great time to help combat your inflammation because when it's done right, fasting can help lower your prostaglandin levels, which prostaglandins are like chemical compounds that essentially are what causes the contractions in your uterus, which are cramps. From a scientific perspective, when your body isn't focused on digesting food all day, that energy can be used elsewhere, like mental clarity, reflection, and awareness, like alertness. And then because your hormones are lower on your period, your brain is already a bit more naturally like intuitive and introspective. So it's like easier to basically hear your thoughts, and then also for me, hear from God. Like, on a spiritual perspective, fasting quiets your flesh so that your spirit can tune in. It's like the difference between having all these different apps open on your phone and then your phone's like glitching out and running slow versus closing all of those apps so that the one that you need you can really focus on and it can run smoothly. Throughout scripture, fasting is used to seek guidance, clarity, seek wisdom, just to be with God, spend time with God, experience his presence, and prepare for something. So, and those are all things that are still very prevalent in the Christian community. Like fasting is still very a part of what people of faith typically tend to do, depending, like, not, I'm not saying that all Christians fast, that's totally not true. Me as a person of faith, I like to incorporate fast, and I think the best time for me to do that as a woman really does sit within the menstrual window for those longer periods of fasting. And I think that science kind of backs that up. But we can have an entirely different episode about fasting, and fasting specifically during the menstrual phase, because I think they just go so hand in hand together, especially like when you look at all of the scriptural language around fasting, like, you know, be still and know that I am God. Like when is the most intuitive time for us as women to be still? It's during our menstrual phase, and when our hormones are at their lowest, it's like you're removing all of those distractions and you can really just hone in, hear God's voice, hear your own thoughts, and just have so much clarity. And I always just feel like I've downloaded so much wisdom, like after my period. Like that's one of the main reasons I look forward to it, because I learned so much. But in general, fasting on your period is really great for managing inflammation, really nice for promoting like mental clarity, and getting like wisdom from God. But also it was really instrumental in helping me break that unhealthy relationship that I was having with food. Because if you remember from the last episode, I was saying how I had started to eat my feelings, and I was using matcha as like a very like unhealthy dependency on the caffeine and like for a morale boost. And so having that time away really helped break that unhealthy dependency I had with certain foods, and that made everything a lot more worthwhile as well. Now, I will say, like, before we get off of this topic, fasting is not, you know, something like that needs to be done in every part of your cycle. Like the way that I tend to go about it is that fasting during the menstrual phase is like top tier, the best. You can do quick optional fasts in follicular. Definitely try to keep things light. In ovulation, like the most that I would do for fasting in those is not having a breakfast or having a very light breakfast. But I do, you know, I'm someone who likes to work out often and stuff like that, and I'll use pre-workout, and I absolutely refuse to have caffeine on an empty stomach. So whether that's like a very small, like an egg bite, or I would usually like break my fast with like sauerkraut and something else. Like I will not have caffeine on an empty stomach, but I won't have like a massive breakfast either. Follicular and ovulation, mind you. Luteal, I do not fast at all. This is not the time to fast. You need to be eating everything. You need to sustain your hormones, and you need to promote like hormone production, especially like progesterone. Like you need to eat to properly have like good levels of progesterone. So eat, feed the queen in luteal. That's the way that I tend to look at fasting overall for the cycle. Again, we can have a whole other episode about that, but just wanted to throw that in there in case you get ideas. But fasting over my period did help my body feel safe, and having the freedom to choose if I needed breakfast or not in follicular and ovulation, all of that really helped my body feel safe and really gave my body time to just kind of focus on recovering and repairing what was lost before. The fourth thing that I did to help my body feel safe and to break out of survival mode was I began to sacrifice things for intentional rest. There were some things that I needed to let go in order to prioritize my rest. So I let cooking dinner go. It was just something that was really stressing me out. There was so much to do, and I know that not everyone has that option. And I'm just speaking to my personal experience. I was very blessed to be able to just be like, okay, I'm just not gonna deal with this anymore. I will let this go. I sacrifice this. And I also, with that, had to sacrifice the guilt and the shame that came from that, because I had talked about before that I was experiencing a lot of that emotionally with not being able to, like, you know, cook for my husband and stuff like that. But I was so tired, guys. I was so tired. I was getting home so late, and I just didn't implement a system to take care of that. So I talked with my husband, and I was like, hey, I can't do this. I can't cook dinner. But also, like, we can't be eating trash. So he was really great and helped out. He would get us meals from Every Table, which, if you don't know what Every Table is, this isn't sponsored, by the way, but it's like a storefront, but you can also, I think, order to go or whatever, but it's like a storefront, and they make the meals, and you can, like, buy them in bulk and just heat them up, and they're pretty solid. So he was, like, getting us lunches from there. And then for dinner, what was nice about our compressed working schedule was that we had OT dinner, overtime dinner. And they would, you know, give you, like, this really great catering service for dinner, like buffet style. And there would always be so much food left over. So what I would do is that I would go get my food for OT dinner at like 6, and it would be so good. I would eat the food, and then they would call for seconds after, and there's always seconds. So then I would go and, like, make a plate for my husband, and I would bring that home to him, and I'd be like, okay, here's dinner. And that worked. That system worked for us. We were still getting fresh cooked food. It just wasn't me cooking it. And that took so much stress off of myself. Like, it was amazing. And for times that we just didn't get the OT dinner for whatever reason, like, I might have, like, forgotten to sign up, or I didn't actually need to stay at the office that late to get OT dinner, we would just make sure that we got one of our healthy takeout options, and we would do that instead. So that really helped, letting that go. And then also, because I didn't have to worry about cooking dinner, I didn't need to go to the grocery store. So saved myself a lot of time for that and had more time to rest. And then also, just not cooking means, like, I can just come home and be with my husband and my dog and then go to sleep on time. So that was really awesome for that. Another thing that I sacrificed for intentional rest was going to the gym. I mean, I couldn't really go to the gym anyway because I was recovering from being in the car accident, but I let that guilt and shame go from that as well. And I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna focus on stretching before bed and, like, midday, like during the work day, make sure I take a stretch break, and, you know, just really just focus on my recovery and deep breathing. I did that for a while. Like, I started to feel more safe. And then I was like, okay, now I can, like, go and, like, just hop on the treadmill, or I'll do the Stairmaster today. But I only did that because I felt safe and I was getting sleep again. Once I started sleeping again, like, oh my gosh, like, cutting out all that other stuff allowed me to focus on catching up on sleep. And then it was like, okay, going to the treadmill doesn't sound awful right now. Like, that's how you know you've made it. It's like when you feel safe enough to do the things before that you couldn't do because everything was just hitting the fan. And then another thing that I sacrificed was waking up early. I slept in every day. Typically, I'm a person who gets up at 5 a.m. I wouldn't call myself a morning person, but I like having the mornings to just take my time waking up and, like, dedicating time to myself before dedicating time to someone else, like going to a job. That's one of my big philosophies in life, and that's one of the things that encourages me to wake up early, because I want to feel like I'm investing in myself before investing in someone else. But that wasn't the goal in this time. That was not sustainable. I needed to sleep. So I let myself sleep in every single day. Like, I am not the kind of person who likes waking up and getting ready and then immediately going to work. But that's what my body needed during this time, and that helped me a lot more than forcing myself to wake up and do other things would have. And then the last thing that I did to really helped my body feel safe again was to only focus on a handful of phase-friendly foods. So generally I try to be more specific with planning around the different phases of my cycle and what I should be eating. But in a time where I'm only focused on surviving, all of that just felt really overwhelming. So I was like, okay, focus on choose your favorites and only focus on that. So I was like, okay, if I'm on my period, I want beef and coconut water. That's it. And again, I'm not cooking or going to the grocery store. So what that means is that for OT dinner, like they usually had like a plethora of protein. I'm looking for beef. If they didn't have it, then I'm like, okay, I need something else. Like, babe, we need takeout from Wild Carvery because I need a fat burger, you know, like a good gourmet, like beef, you know? And then I would go to the store only for the coconut water. That's it. And that would just be so easy. I'm like, I need beef, coconut water. And then in my late follicular and ovulation, I kind of combined those two. I was like, all right, we're gonna focus on sauerkraut and spinach. That's it. Sauerkraut and spinach. Those two things are always in my fridge regardless. Like the sauerkraut, I always have sauerkraut on hand. And then spinach, I would just throw that on top of whatever I had to eat. So like that's really all I'm focused about. Or if they had like spinach at the OT dinner, I would get that. But a lot of the times too, I would bring my OT dinner home, throw my spinach on top. I need spinach if I'm in follicular ovulation. That's it. And then in my luteal phase, I was like, I don't care about anything else. I need sweet potatoes. I want sweet potatoes. I love sweet potatoes in my luteal phase. It's the absolute best thing in the world for me. I just need some sweet potatoes. That's it. So if OT dinner had sweet potatoes, amazing, fantastic. If they didn't, guess what? I know a couple of different takeout places that have really good options for like healthy bowls that all got roasted sweet potatoes. That's what I'm getting, dog. That's what I'm getting, OG, double OG, triple OG. Get me some sweet potatoes and we're good. So I had those like non-negotiables and I was like, all right, if I can just focus on only doing those two, like having those two things for like each phase, I will be okay. And then it also made my mental health a lot better because it was like, hey, you're still taking care of yourself. You're still prioritizing this, you know? So that made me feel really good to know that I was still thinking about those things and not completely putting them to the back burner like I was kind of doing before. And then if for whatever reason I just could not get to those foods in my phase for whatever reason, I would just be like, bottom line, warm foods in luteal and menstrual, cool foods in late follicular ovulation. Like if the meal is hot, okay. If the meal is cold, okay. You know, like that would be my go-to for trying to figure out different options. And also making those decisions now really helped with the decision fatigue later. So to kind of recap everything that I did to come out of survival mode and to just really help my body start feeling safe again was I first had to start accepting the things that I could not control and move into a mindset of, okay, what can I control? What could I control? Starting to track my cycle again. That was a huge thing. That provides stability for me because it gives me knowledge. And again, knowledge is power. Then I was fasting over my period. Super game changer for me. Really helped manage my inflammation and really just gave my body a time to decompress and reset. I then started sacrificing different things so that I could have more time to rest. Like I intentionally let things go so that I could focus on resting. And on top of all of that, I was making sure that I had my go-to foods that would be honoring my hormones in whatever phase that I was in. All those things together were a really great recipe for just kind of getting my body back into the groove of everything. And just to explain that I did all of these things while I was still tired. Like I didn't just suddenly have energy to do these things, and it's not like, you know, they were just done in an instant. Like I did this all while I was still sleepy, and that's why I was like, at any chance I could get, prioritize rest, prioritize rest, prioritize rest, because that presented fuel to kind of do everything else. The sleep was key. And again, like I mentioned before, if you are in survival mode right now and you're looking to get out, your protocol can look completely different than mine. Actually, I encourage it because every person is different, everybody is different, and what you do may be the key to helping someone else's, own survival mode journey. Like whatever you discover, you need to share because that may unlock something for someone else. And that's what I'm doing right now, is like hoping to help someone else in whatever they're going through. Because again, what I mentioned last week, pain reveals purpose. There is always going to be a way that God uses whatever we give him. And that's why we have to give it to him first. He has got a plan for it. He has got a plan for it. Whether or not you know what that is, who knows? But just give him what you have because he will use it. There is no waste at the altar, okay? Every single trial and tribulation that we go through always has a blessing on the other side of it. Not just for us, but for someone else. So I pray that someone was able to get something out of this conversation, that they were able to find some kind of value and meaning, and that even if whatever I did like doesn't work for you, I pray that it just encourages you to start thinking about what could work for you. What does your survival mode look like? Maybe your survival mode looks completely different than mine too. Let's have a conversation about that. Figure it out. Try some things. Let me know what does work, what doesn't work, what you discover, and let us know in the comments because we don't gatekeep here. We're all for helping the girlies, okay? So yeah, try things out and let us know. Let's talk. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I hope that you not only like got something out of this, but you also had fun. Like I have fun talking with you guys, and I love talking about stuff like this. I could literally talk about it all day, hence why we're here. So thank you so much again. Y'all have a blessed day. See you in the next one.